welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And this week we continue our summer slasher season with I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
Is that too on the nose?
We
We made too obvious a choice.
Yeah, well, I think we literally spoke about it in our summer slashers, which you haven't checked out because the episode was so low listened to. Peek behind the curtain.
Go back and listen to that episode.
Yeah.
You need that to frame the rest of the season.
Yeah.
That was the starting post.
Yeah, that's the starting post. Well, we spoke about it, and then as we were kind of talking about films to do after, we were like, why don't we try and do some slashers from different decades?
Yeah.
And, I mean, we did cover Scream in a lost episode, but Scream is just, similar. It's kind of, it's one that's expected. It's such a fucking banging film that we might as well do I Know What You Did Last Summer. Yeah. Because it's still talked about quite a lot, but it's not, it's nowhere near that kind of pantheon of like legendary slashers, I would say.
No, it was big. It was big in the 90s. Obviously, it was big around its time, but it didn't have the lasting impact I think of like Scream did.
No,
from both being from Kevin Williamson writing. They both, were big at the time. They were both hits, but just Screams had a lasting thing. Whereas I Know What You Did Last Summer had that, and then it had a sequel, and then it kind of teetered off into the direct-to-video. I'll always know what you did last summer.
Yeah, and we spoke about it when we spoke briefly about that in Summer Slashers. Then it had the Amazon kind of like retake series, and now I believe they're working on some kind of like requel for it.
Yeah,
I believe.
We believe it's been mentioned, although I don't feel like there's any actual. I feel like we just keep hearing rumours and not actual official confirmation. I think we've heard Jennifer Love Hewitt said she'd be up for it to doing it.
Yeah,
and I think but I think that's all. Apart from that, it's Freddie Prinze Jr. But I don't believe that he would return for it. No, he's pretty much done with acting mainly at this point. The only thing that will bring him back is that Scooby-Doo 3.
Yeah, unless
if they finally do the Scooby-Doo 3, then obviously he will. And even if he says no, he has no choice.
We will kill him.
It's like a death curse. If you don't agree, you die. And, he will be forced.
He swore in blood that he would do any Scooby-Doo.
All children of the 90s and noughties will force him to join together to do that. To be fair, that was half of what kept popping through my head. I was like, this film is half good because it has half of the characters it could do. If this had Linda Cardellini and Matthew Lillard in place, this would be a superior film.
And they ran over like a CGI dog.
They ran over a CGI dog and then get into hijinks about what happened last summer.
And then it's Scrappy-Doo.
Yeah.
It's not actually Scooby who's after them. That's the twist,
That's the film we needed right here.
I'll be honest, I did struggle with watching this film at some points because I love Scream, and we've spoken about this on a few episodes, like with Scary Movie, like Scary Movie. I think the first two, particularly, had such a big impact that there were points where I can't take this film seriously because I remember what happened. Like the case in point, so I'm watching this film, I'm enjoying it, and then there's just the point where Barry gets the photograph on the of the car on his locker, and I thought it was going to be his penis, and I was like, oh my god, fucking hell! And then I couldn't. I thought he had baby dick, and then like his character. I always thought his character was a bit of a dickhead anyway, but then I couldn't unsee his character from the Scary Movie spoof, and then Sarah Michelle Gellar's character kind of like became the one that Nadia plays, and I was kind of like watching it, and I was like, really, like this film has just been spoofed so brilliantly.
Her actual name is Shannon Elizabeth.
The
actual actress who plays her in Scary Movie, but everyone just knows her as Nadia from American Pie.
She did go on to be in the Night of the Demons remake as Angela.
Did she?
Which was good.
She did a few kind of variations of films, I believe, but
we still beat off.
It's still just Nadia.
We still beat off.
She will forever go down in history as Nadia.
We still beat off.
But you're right. The Marlon brothers have some real blood on their hands for these films because, as I said, and because I have an enduring love for Scream, I was able to kind of after a while kind of bypass it for the most part. But it doesn't mean that every time I watch, say, Scream 2, I don't think of the bit when he puts his ear against the bathroom door, and I keep on thinking there's a penis that's going over it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's those kind of things, or like, there are these ones, but I did think this because it'd been so long since I'd seen this. It was that thought in your head of, wait, didn't this happen like this? Or when's the bit when she screams like, just do it already, just do it already, which I thought was properly like main part, and then I was like, oh no, that was a scary movie.
It does happen, doesn't it?
It does happen,
but it's not
happen,
quite that.
It's not quite, it's not the whole like guy jumping off a roof and just kind of over dramatic way that it's done in there kind of thing. That's what I mean. It's an interesting one with that because it just kind of skews your whole vision of the film.
It really did, man.
Yeah, there are a few things that I definitely noticed that I probably wouldn't have thought about so much back in the day. But then again, I forgot how much of this is a thriller. And how much of it isn't. And quite a lot of it is playing with the audience as well, I think, in this one.
Yeah.
It's not so much like... There is a death count. There's an alright death count, but the deaths mainly come like at one point, and then a lot of them come together.
They come quick, thick and fast at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of mentioned it's a thriller, and I'm assuming quite a lot of people know that it's based on a book from 1973, which does share the same name. You know, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'm just finding who it was written by now, because. Funnily enough,
it's Lois Duncan.
Lois Duncan. So it kind of is vaguely similar. It does follow like a group of kids who run somebody over, but it happens to be like a kid they run over on a bike. I don't think there's quite so much of them like.
I think the TV series actually has some of those little, like it's more about friend stuff, isn't it, that they use and stuff like that.
Yeah, because the book kind of does follow very vague, you know.
It does have similar. It has the same name of characters and stuff.
Yeah,
like Julie James and
has the same names and kind of like a loose thread. But then Kevin Williamson kind of rewrote it almost like House on Sorority Row, and there's kind of 80s slashers where it is a bit more like. Something happens and somebody's killing them a year later, and who did it? You know, who is it?
It's a bit more like slash and gory than I think the original idea of the novel, which is a little bit more thriller.
Like melodrama, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit more of that young adult kind of style of novel, whereas this is a bit more of the older adult, slightly older adult.
Yeah, slightly older adult. Teen slasher. But I think there's one thing that I always forget, and it opens up with some beautiful shots of like the American coastline. I think it's set in North Carolina, and fuck me, it opens up with an absolutely awful cover of Summer Breeze. I don't know who it's by, but it's some new metal, and it just reminds me of like late 90s, early 2000s. Oh, this just reminds me of new metal.
This reminds me so much of 90s slashes. All of them had a kind of a little bit slightly metal or something like that kind of style. I can't think of what the band was, but they pop up so many times in like so many of these films from that era. They're kind of punky, metally kind of band, but kind of poppy at the same time. I can't think of what band it is on the top of my head. It will come to me in a minute.
But it's some like Korn or Limp Bizkit, or like something like that.
Korn was one of them popping in my head, but anyway, it just to be fair, that kind of music always brings me back though. If I hear music like that, I'm like, that's 90s slasher. You should be in there. Should be in there. It's all Metallica in the 90s or something. It's like this would have been the soundtrack to any teen horror from the 90s kind of thing. But I've always got a soft spot for some of those ones.
I do. I don't get me wrong. I do. Not Summer Breeze. That's fucking awful.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think like most new metal should just be eradicated. I know that will be an unpopular opinion, and there always will be a small part of me that will kind of like love it. But it just makes my toes just curl up when I listen to it.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, I don't know what, man. It's just so cringe, so incredibly cringe. But it's We get the the gay. I was about to say the
Creed.
gay. Creed.
It's Creed.
Ah, I like Creed. That's the problem. How did I not
Creed
recognize?
is a very Creed. Yeah, they're like the Here Comes My Hero.
That's Nickelback.
Is that Nickelback?
Yeah.
Here Comes My Hero. No.
Is it?
No, that's Creed. Here's a conversation about
my
Creed.
hero. That's Foo Fighters. Watch him as he goes. I swear that's Foo Fighters.
That could be.
Creed
that
is higher. Creed. One last breath. You know.
Maybe I'm thinking of Creed covering a song by someone else.
Either way, they cover Summer Breeze.
They did. I don't know if you saw it, but they just did. They had Paramount Plus did like a Super Bowl commercial. I think I posted that on our thing when it was out. Literally bringing together like everything from like 90s earliest of 2000s when it had like Hey Arnold in it, had Patrick Stewart.
I saw that, yeah.
All that kind of stuff, you know. And then midway through, they're just like, oh, and here's Creed.
Yeah,
and he's higher. Singing. Oh, it's higher. Yeah. That's why. Yeah, I don't know why I remembered it. Here Comes My Hero, but
yeah,
and that's
it's
the
higher.
name of the song.
But yeah. I mean, we all make social faux pas, don't we?
There we go.
And there you are. Creed's is Summer Breeze.
I mean, to be fair, I don't actually I don't think I've ever properly listened to Creed that much.
No.
I've only heard it in
90s
soundtracks. It's like that. They're on the soundtrack of like Scream 3 or stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's like that's the only reason I know them. I've never actually went to listen to a Creed CD. I've heard them mocked many times by people like Nickelback, but. I don't know. Anytime I've heard them, I think they're alright for what they are.
Would have been the gym. I like a bit of Creed,
yeah, I was gonna say,
but not Summer Breeze. I don't know how I didn't pick up it was them, you know. But kind of not going away.
Then of course, we also we're talking about the music within the film, although I don't think there is any Creed in this film. And then of course you've got the na 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 na.
Oh, that's on every car advert.
That is the classic.
Yeah.
That everyone knows for this one. Hush by Kahlua Shaker.
Yeah.
Summer Breeze by Type O Negative.
Oh, that's it. Type O Negative.
We've got DUI by Offspring because again.
Oh, we've got to have the Offspring. Yeah. Who else?
Soul Asylum.
Soul Asylum. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know the rest of these.
Let's have a look.
There's Korn. Proud by Korn, of course.
Of course, there's Korn.
There's Adam Cohen. There's Hooverphonic.
No.
Goat.
No.
Our Lady Peace.
No.
The Din Pedals.
The Din Pedal, no. Sorry, lads.
Southern Culture on the Skids.
No.
Sorry. Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Sorry, Toad.
I kind of want to know, some of these names are fantastic. I kind of want to know. L7.
Oh, L7, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know any of these. Green Apple, Quick Step.
No.
Yeah, that's it.
That's a breakdown of the soundtrack for I Know What You Did Last Summer. Thank you for checking out the episode. We hope that you join us next week. Remember to hit that subscribe button.
We read bands off of Wikipedia.
This is the podcast is now just we read the soundtrack list and that's it.
And I say I don't know, and we mix up bands of other bands. And just generally have no clue what we're talking about.
No. Well, let's
back to the film.
Yeah, let's get back on track.
Let's talk about this. What about this stacked? I mean, to be fair, if we're talking 90s, I mean Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Philippe, and Freddie Prinze Jr. as the cover of these films is a pretty stacked.
It is pretty stacked, man.
That's like your team dream right there. Like,
well, I remember
there's not a single one that you probably wouldn't bang.
Mate, I remember
when they're in the 90s.
I remember watching Jennifer Love Hewitt in Heartbreakers.
Oh yeah,
with Sigourney Weaver, and I had such a crush on her.
Oh yeah,
I was about 9 years old at the time. I got a hard on. I didn't know what to do with it. I was 9, but I remember renting it on VHS at my grandparents for some reason, renting Heartbreakers because Jennifer Love Hewitt was in it and she's hot as fuck. So and just watching it.
You know when you have like certain films that are on so much at a certain point in time that you almost are like, where did that film go when it finally disappears off TV? Because Heartbreakers, I remember being on TV all the goddamn time, and therefore also linked into that is the fact that Jennifer Love Hewitt was like at one point like
she was on top of the world, man,
and then just kind of it didn't quite go the way, and then she does a lot of TV. She's still big in TV.
I mean, but to be
fair, none of them are actually these are 4 people that could have opened just about any film to put big numbers in the late 90s.
I mean, not even just that. Like you've got obviously JLH, who was massive at the time. Sarah Michelle Gellar's Helen Shivers, who was like,
I mean, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, she was in quite a few films. It feels like she never quite. I don't know if it was because it just kind of went past its time. So by the time she was done with Buffy, it was like, the time is now kind of past, which happens sometimes.
Yeah, it happens.
So she never was able to quite pick up from that ending of Buffy kind of thing.
No, but Buffy was like a cultural like phenomenon, and it's kind of like certified her place. Ryan Felipe, you know.
I mean, Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Felipe are, cult classic Cruel Intentions.
Yeah, Cruel Intentions.
I mean, that's huge. And Ryan Felipe, out of all of these, to be honest, was probably the strongest actor of the, but like not necessarily in this film, but he was probably the one. He was the one that people thought would break out bigger, and then just kind of
really crash.
He was married to Reese Witherspoon, so
yeah,
he did alright for himself.
FP Jr. Freddie Prinze Jr. obviously
Freddie Prinze Jr. the class, So we've got obviously Sarah Michelle Gellar, who starred with Ryan Felipe in Cruel Intentions, and then also starred with Freddie Prinze Jr. in Scooby Doo, the greatest film of all time.
Of course.
So she's been all around with these guys, and the amount of '90s films you can kind of click together from these four people. But yeah, it's huge. But I won't get into my.
But then even
this cast,
even if we look at support cast, man. Johnny Galecki, who I believe kind of at the time was...
Is it mad to think that out of all of these actors, Johnny Galecki is probably
the most
now the biggest and probably the most wealthiest of anyone on this list.
Yeah.
Because of Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, which is mental. But then even like Bridget Wilson, who plays Helen's sister,
Oh yeah.
Last Action Hero, Billy Madison, Mortal Kombat. I Know What You Did Last Summer, House on Haunted Hill, Wedding Planner, so she went on and did some
and we had,
other stuff as well.
And then we've got Anne Heche, who then, this was the year before she went on to star in the Psycho remake.
Yeah, that was it.
And then obviously she did quite a few films after that.
Yeah.
She died like a year ago, didn't she?
Did she?
Years ago.
Oh man, that's sad.
Yeah.
Who else you got? You got Muse Watson, who was in this film. Sorry, Muse.
He's Ben Wilson. He's the killer.
I mean, to be fair, that goes to show my thoughts on the killer. Is that
Ben Willis.
My man Muse was in it, and then Stuart Greer as Officer. If you want to know about Stuart Greer, born December 2nd, 1959, is an American retired actor. He's been in a lot of films, although he doesn't have he was in Roadhouse 2. He doesn't have a picture on his Wikipedia. I
don't know what's happening in this episode. We've gone into list mode.
We have, haven't we?
And we do. I think we have plenty of things to talk about within it. But yeah, we've got drawn in by these lists, and we need to stop staring at
lists.
Yeah. We normally do not do that, so it's like we're getting drawn in by our list. But yeah. All the Ranger wants to talk through those. Now, I have said in the past, so I think Jennifer Love Hewitt in the I think maybe actually on this podcast I've been a bit I wasn't harsh with her, but I kind of said that she was a bit of a dull leading lady.
Well, that's kind of that's a common consensus I think around her, is that JLH's Judy James is kind of a bit bland.
Yeah,
and Sarah Michelle Gellar, Helen Shivers is the more traditional final girl, and people.
But I think
she's taken it on.
It is. I mean, one thing I do like about this one is the fact that it is actually for within the night, and again following on from the Sidney Prescott and Scream. It's another kind of female led more. Ryan Felipe and Freddie Prinze Jr. very much play side characters.
Yeah,
they're in part. They are in throughout, scattered throughout. And Freddie Prinze Jr. actually is very kind of only in certain parts.
He was in less than I remember.
Yeah, he is, because he's very much the red herring character, I think, isn't he? He's laid out to be is he the one, which has its own things. But with those two characters, I feel like I've been a bit unfair on her, really, because that is what the role is, though. She's meant to be the one that has the conscience almost of all of them.
Yeah.
So she's meant to be the one that beats herself up, and the one that is really hard on herself, and the one that's struggling to get over it when the rest of them maybe are finding it a bit easier than her.
Yeah.
The rest of them are more damaged from the fact that they, you know, after high school didn't quite go their way. You know, like it does with Helen kind of thing. And she gets to be more of a fun character because she is more of a, like, well, I've tried things and it's failed, so fuck it. You know, I'm a bit more like, she's a bit more blasé about life in that kind of way than, whereas Julie is very much, you know, kind of focused when she is, but then she's very drawn in emotionally.
She's real consumed by the guilt.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of consumed. But as that's what the character is, I think it's a bit unfair when Jennifer Love Hewitt maybe was brought down for being a leading lady when actually she's doing what she's meant to do quite well. Yeah. I didn't feel she was, you know, it didn't feel fake every time she was like upset or worried, you know, or what I mean. Which is kind of the role. It's not necessarily her fault that it's just not the most interesting all of the time.
Yeah, because I mean, it's almost like they try to portray her as this kind of like quite bookish, borderline like prudish woman at a time. Like, if you quite often if you compare her to Helen Shivers, and there's scenes where Helen and Julie do pretty much the heavy lifting of the movie. Yeah. And if you compare their wardrobes and their appearances and their attitudes, they're kind of like polar opposites, you know. Helen Shivers is always wearing shorts and a fucking something skimpy. And then
and Julie's always cardigans and
And sometimes it for me, like watching it back, maybe that struck me as they're trying to make her kind of be a bit too bookish, and it feels a bit more forced for the character.
Yeah, I mean that more comes after it happened, like kind of
even
after
before
it, like well in the first like scene or so they're quite like thing. I mean she has sex on the beach.
Yeah, which is strange, but she's still wearing like a skirt that's like training down to her. Like,
she's,
the soles of her
not
feet,
like
you know?
I mean she's nowhere near as far as like Helen in terms of like this isn't my first time on the beach. I've done this like a million times. For Helen's character anyway, I think it's portrayed. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, it definitely gives more chance for Sarah Michelle Gellar to come across as the more fun character,
and she does. I think she comes across as a more fun character, and
I think she shares like nearly. She was in it more than I remembered.
Yes,
I thought she was very much of a side character that then gets offed. And now I remember why so many people are disappointed of her death in this film, because she actually gets quite a chance to build up, and you get a bit more of the emotional connection.
Well, they all do. You know?
She went off and did her own thing, but it didn't work out for her with Helen's character. You know, trying to be an actress, model, whatever. You know, in New York. Yeah, didn't work out for her. But she has kind of the emotional kind of the fact that even though that didn't it feels more like Julie was the one that kind of like severed ties because she just couldn't deal with it anymore. So like Helen's got that kind of emotion, like you have that in the car scene when they're together, and she's just kind of like, what happened to us kind of thing. Like what happened, we used to be like, all of us were like this close knit bunch, and now we're just all separate. Like, we can't handle it, like none of us can.
I mean we'll run through kind of the start, because it does it's, I think, for the actual premise of the film, I think, and looking at it as the kind of like that 80s slasher, very much kind of a little bit similar to Sleepaway Camp last week, you know. You have like an opening where something happens, a bunch of people who are involved, and then they start getting picked off one by one. Like the main thing that
quite just a summer slasher vibe.
It is.
It's the whole, you know, something terrible happened on the summer, or something happens at a camp, or something happens. You know what I mean? Even Friday the 13th,
and then it comes back.
Yeah, it's like something bad happens, and then we're like, we're back.
So it's quite like a safe setup. The one that it reminded me most of was almost like Prom Night. Yeah, you know, where like I think like a kid falls out of a window, and there's a bunch of kids who are there, and it's kind of like, well, that kid's fucked. Who's doing it, you know? But we get depressed David Egan on the rocks, looking over, drinking fucking whiskey, and then we get like a 4th of July party. Johnny Gillette comes up trying to fucking pound.
And he look hard as hell.
Trying to look hard as hell. Well, it's really weird.
I couldn't really get the angle of this, because it seemed like Johnny Galecki obviously is quite short. as we know.
Yeah.
And then he comes up with it. So then he does seem tiny compared to Ryan Felipe. But when you see Ryan Felipe in other scenes, he looks really short, which I think he is.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the scene they angled it so that he
looked
like
bigger,
he was like
more imposing,
but like jock kind of
Yeah.
guy compared to Johnny Galecki's, which therefore makes him look absolutely tiny.
Johnny Galecki's like a
just
hobbit.
there, like you're just there, like yeah. I mean, in that scene, to be fair, like straight away, the problem is like Ryan Felipe's character straight away. You're just like, yeah, but you didn't have to act like that. You were a dick.
Yeah, Ryan Felipe's character is a fucking.
There's something horribly like smarmy about Johnny Galecki's character. There's something like he's
just skeevy, isn't he?
Yeah, there's a you can kind of tell where Julie wants him away from her because you're just like, I don't know what it is. It's that I think what it is. It's not so much that he's a bad guy or even like a bad looking guy. I feel like it's the fact that he comes across with this odd confidence, which feels unearned for someone. Like it seems a bit like he's unearned that he seems to be like that. It seems like he's trying to like come on to her and stuff like that.
He comes across as the kind of guy where like if she went to like the toilet, like he would go in there after and just like smell. You know, he comes off fucking weird.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if she like fell asleep next to him at a party or something, like, he'd be like feeling her up.
Yeah,
like, that's the kind of dude we're getting.
Yeah,
he's not quite as skeevy. For some reason, I remember him being even skeevier than he actually is. Actually, he doesn't actually do that much of a skeeviness, but I remembered him being a bit more of a dick or doing something worse that leads to more reason for his death.
Well, in the first kind of scene he's in, he is a bit skeevy.
Yeah,
and then it's almost like when they go like a year later, you've gone from being like this like skeevy little bar worker to being like a tough talking fisherman. You know? It's like it seems like everybody in this town is like a year later. Well, you're a fisherman now. You're a hardened fisherman. You know.
That's the thing. The way he talks and the confidence he has makes him seem more like he's kind of more like he would have been more of the posh, like the rich kind of boy who thinks he can get whatever he wants kind of thing. So then, like a year later, I know he's like working in the bar and stuff, but then a year later when he's like working in the fish fair, I was like, that doesn't. I don't know why your character just didn't seem like you were going to end up in this position.
But we get that scene, and then they go to the beach. They pound in the first 10 minutes, and then as they're driving back,
but not for the final girl. They're going against their rules. She does not have.
She does not.
Or you don't survive. You're in horror film.
Yeah, and then they're listening to like Creed or something. They're playing it.
Yeah.
And does somebody start to get their pipe sucked? No, that's the scary movie. I'm thinking, I watched this film like 2 nights ago.
Or like that he's trying to get his pipe.
That's
the whole setup in that one, that he's trying to get her.
Yeah,
the Billy character's trying to get her to set it in the back. You've got them basically fucking in the background.
Yeah.
That's all fit. In this one, everyone else is being quite like. Ryan Felipe's Barry is making out with Helen Shivers, and he's absolutely fucking pissed. He's like he's drinking his bottle of Jack or whatever.
Yeah.
And the other two are pretty much just driving along, and Freddie Prinze Jr.'s Ray seems more worried about just making sure that the car stays in one piece. So there's none of the whole like looking at each other or like go on like play my dick or whatever. Yeah. None of that. That's a scary movie creation that again is put into your brain by that.
Exactly.
Twisting your mind. So they have that bit. It's pretty much, and then Ryan Felipe's Barry gets up like he's fucking
the king
dick,
of the world.
Yeah, and I'm doing the king of the world as I'm driving along, and then he drops his bloody bottle down, and then they all get like confused, and then bang, body flies up, kind of partially smacks Barry, kind of a bit, and then they're like, "What the fuck is that?" Kind of thing. It's pretty much Barry's fault.
Yeah, of course it is.
But of course, somehow it ends up being everyone but Barry's fault.
Yeah, well, that's Barry.
That's because he's the rich asshole kid.
Yeah, he's a prank.
I mean, I know it's a simple setup, but normally when they have these setups in the film, it is brushed past very quickly. It's like, oh, they died,
especially in the 80s,
and then we've moved on.
You know.
So this one, I do like the fact that it takes a little bit more into the conscience and the action of the thing. Although I will say, because they're up on that high height, and obviously that shot at the beginning where you got to see him like on the ledge kind of thing showed you like the drop below it. So the whole time I was just thinking, because obviously they're talking about, what we're going to do, we need to get her, we can't do this, we're going to go, they'll just think that he did it, they're fighting with each other. And I just kept on thinking, I mean, if I'm honest, guys, you hit him with a car, which is more a kind of a blunt force trauma. So how about you just lob him off the cliff? Because that's more blunt force trauma. So they probably won't realise if he'd killed himself or jumped off.
Yeah, I like the way you're like, throw his body off.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, yes, Julie's completely right. You're driving, and he stepped out in the darkness. He's not wearing any kind of, high vis. Like, I go with Freddie. I go with Ray on this one and say that they're gonna say that the other dude did it, and they're gonna be like, it's your car, you're the drunk dude. I don't trust the police to do that properly in that situation. I think they're fucking them over, all of them. See, that's why they'd be after you, and they'd kill you, and I'd just be fine. They'd be like, okay, fine. You told the truth. Past it, You're a good boy.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about anybody.
Yeah. In fact, I was just there thinking, you know what?
Chuck him off.
Just literally, guys, just quickly, like even when Johnny Galecki's Max was driving up, I was like, just quickly, just yank right off that cliff.
You got to be really careful with your word there. Yeah. I'm going to say, just toss him off.
Just toss him right off that cliff.
And it's just like Johnny drives past. He's just beating a man off on the side of the road. Never to see here, Johnny. Keep going.
just beating a dead man's
I'm just beating a dead man off. That's what I thought you were going to go for. You'll be careful with your words there.
Yeah. Yeet him right off that cliff.
Yeah, just yeet him off.
And then there you go. Hit all the cliffs on the way down, smash his body up into a pulp, and the police will just be like, dude just jumped off the cliff.
Because they do.
Or he fell off the cliff, or he slipped, or someone knocked him off. But we don't know who'd find it.
No, or me. And for some reason, they take him to
That's what I mean. Instead of doing that, and just... Because when they first talked about it, in my head, because I couldn't remember them going down to the dock, I remember them just throwing him over something into like the ocean. I was like, so you're just going to... You lob him off into the sea below.
Yeah.
But instead, no, they're like, no, what we need to do is contaminate the car with more
evidence.
By putting the body inside the car. And then we're going to drive down all
the way
town to a dock in a village that is obviously very much known for being fishermen.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope that there's no fishermen that possibly could be anywhere around. That
or CCTV cameras.
Or any murderous killers who might go, you're dead for that.
Yeah.
All these kind of things. No. We're going to sneak on and then we're going to take them out and we're going to walk out and we're going to carry this body out into the big open, like with lights and stuff like that all around us, and there's no chance that this is going to go wrong. Instead of just yeeting them off a cliff.
Yeah.
That seemed like a way easy option. Or, telling the truth. That's another thing.
Telling the truth.
I'm not gay.
Yeah, that is true. This is the 90s.
This is the 90s, so I can say stuff like
you can say
it. It's allowed.
Yeah. I just thought of a plot hole anyway. But we'll get to that when we get to it.
But yeah, so it's I think there's definitely, but then with any slasher, you can like pick those kind of things apart.
Of course.
Like, why did you do it this way? And part of the thing, to be fair to them, is the idea that they're not really fucking thinking straight, and they're meant to be some dumb high school kids who aren't really thinking through any of this properly.
Well, yeah.
So they're thinking they can, but it's just to me, I was just like, because they're saying they're going to drop him. It's just like, dropping him next to the dock does not feel like he's going to end up far away from the dock.
Yeah.
It's like he's just going to stay or get what. Like they're saying, like they'll wash him away off his. I was like, I'm not sure that's quite how it works, especially like where you're dropping him. Like I don't. It's like if I go down to the beach and drop a body, literally just like from it to the first, like just literally straight into the side of the shore and just be like, yeah, it's fine.
Like the ankle high water.
It gets washed back onto the beach and be like,
oh no,
oh fuck.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much what comes to my mind here. Like if they drop him in the middle of the, that's why people have to get a boat out into the middle of the ocean and drop. That's what I do when I kill someone.
Yeah, when you kill,
I wrap them up in their body. I take the boat far out. If you've seen Dexter, it's all very precise.
It is very precise.
Cut them up, get their body, make sure you've removed anything that can
make love to them.
Like this, and that's what I would do in that situation. But instead, they just literally throw him literally right next to the dock.
Just throw him
literally, like I swear by the next day, someone would be like,
that's a body.
There's a body.
Yeah, whose body is this?
They literally sit on it like next day. Let's just put our fishing nets, all these fishing nets for these fishermen that are about to go out, and Holy fuck, we've got a dead body.
We have a dead body.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't even left the
We
dock
haven't
yet.
even left the dock yet. Can we check the CCTV? Oh yeah, there's some kids throwing.
There's some kids throwing a body in there.
That's the end. They take them off to prison, and that's the end.
And they all
It
get
just
killed.
ends with Ryan Felipe being raped in
Yeah,
showers.
and then he becomes a prison bitch.
To
that-
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Freddie Prinze Jr. becomes like some Don.
The proper Ray
Yeah.
comes out of him.
Man, I love that so much. That actual Ray.
We see how he becomes Black Ray from Scary
Yeah,
Movie.
yeah.
The transformation that happens.
Yeah.
It's a prequel to Scary Movie.
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
But yeah, so no, there's a. I mean, yeah, it's
a good setup.
It's a good setup, and yeah, you could pick holes in any of these things, and not that there's more things that as it comes kind of thing. There is one thing which I didn't quite expect so much to kind of thing, but and I because I like him in other roles and things like that. But
Yeah.
I've got to be honest, Freddie Prinze Jr. is wooden as fuck in this film.
He is, and
His acting is not good in this film.
and he's not a fisherman, man.
Yeah,
Like he reminded me
I mean,
of Devin
yeah.
Zoolander when
Yeah.
he is the miner. You know,
Yeah.
like they like this tragedy happens, and then like Julie they all go their separate ways, and Julie comes back next summer, and she's like failing school, and she's like she's about to get kicked out. Her mum's like, "Are you on drugs? You know, your dad would be rolling in his grave." Helen went off to New York City and failed. Barry is just a bed end chilling at home in a white vest and like 90s fucking sunglasses.
I mean, yeah, he's got a proper like wife beater.
Yeah, we've got a proper
Vibes
wife
going
beater on. And then Freddie Prinze Jr., one of an extremely handsome young man, just somehow is a fucking fisherman.
Yeah,
It feels so, like
I mean,
you
yeah.
don't know what a boat is. Like, come on, man.
I mean, it's not every part that he's in, but to be honest, whenever he's meant to be acting somewhat like, like confused by something, or anytime it's like, no, I didn't do that kind of thing. It's just there's like no emotion to it. It's just it's one of those where it's like it's like I can feel him. How hard he's having to try to act. It's like his acting is so obvious.
But he always looks confused. Like his face, he constantly looks like he's a deer in headlights.
Yeah, he does.
And he just for this film, but he looks like he's just like, what is happening? Like he looks like he banged his head and he thinks this is real.
Yeah, he constantly looks like he might be someone who's a bit special.
Or he has a concussion or something.
Like they don't realise that he actually tried to be a fisherman for like a day. Literally banged his head. He lost like half his brain.
He like drowned.
He's just there, like
nearly drowned.
Yeah.
And then he comes back. His brain's so deprived of oxygen, and they're like, film him, and he's just like, what am I doing?
Yeah, it's just like I didn't suspect because I kind of like all of these actors, and it's not to say against Freddie Prinze Jr. But I think, to be honest, I think even Freddie Prinze Jr. sometimes talked about his own acting and said that he just didn't feel like he was the most natural actor, and it wasn't his natural calling kind of thing. He didn't really enjoy it. That's why he kind of ended early. When him and Michelle Gellar had a family, he was like, I'm going to raise a family. I want that to be my film. I totally get that.
But I guess maybe because Fred is that kind of character. But when he plays Fred, like, he's good. It kind of fits.
It does, and I also think, even when I've seen him in other things, like, the other ones he's known for, like She's All That and stuff like that, playing the jockey kind of character and stuff like that. He's not like that, it feels like. But this, it almost feels like something about this role, I know, because he doesn't really do, he hasn't really meant, apart from these ones, these are the only horror-y ones he's done.
Yeah.
But it just feels like this kind of thing, it's almost like he, approaching it, just almost didn't believe in himself.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I can't do this kind of thing. I can't be like the menacing. And that's the problem. When you're going to have the guy that's the red herring, it's kind of a bit... And he's obviously made the red herring because, it's a bit like... But the problem is there's none of that kind of... Even the class... I was about to say David Schwimmer.
He is famous like David Schwimmer.
I was thinking Dewey, and I said David Schwimmer.
Yeah.
Wrong one. David Arquette.
Yes.
For instance, he in the first Scream is kind of, he's not full goofy again, ruined by Scary Movie. he's not full goofy, and he has some scenes when he's meant to be kind of a little bit like
naive.
Is he? But they also play up in one or two scenes where he's like, is he suspicious? But there's enough there that you're like, well, I could see possibly kind of thing. But here, like, there's like you're just watching and there's just like. There's nothing intimidating about it. And you're not meant to be intimidating. So that's the thing. Like, if he'd come across as a hard, gruff kind of character, then you might be like, it's, it feels like Barry, Ryan Philippe, he should have been more of because I could believe him as the fucking cold-blooded killer. But Freddie Prinze Jr. has come across as he's like a puppy.
Yeah,
he's like he's like that. It's like it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's gonna be fine. He doesn't seem smart enough to deal with this situation.
And I was literally it didn't clock to me that they had him as that red herring role until that very bit right at the end where she's like, oh no, like Billy Blue or whatever it is. Yeah. It's you. I was like, what? Like, he's not believable as a red herring or a killer at all. Like,
They've got it in a few scenes. Like there's one where they're talking in like the bedroom after she's found the body in the back of the car.
Yeah.
After she's found Johnny Galecki's character with the crabs and stuff. After that one, and they're talking, and just like that was the main one for me. Where he was just like reacting to everything. And it's like acting is reacting. Yeah. It's like everything was like, he's like, what? He's like, I don't know. I don't know.
He's done not.
Literally.
What?
He's better actually in some of the earlier scenes. But as it goes along, it almost seems more like he's only there to be in scenes to literally react or be told that he is. Like, I suspect that you might be upset. You're the fisherman, you're a fisherman.
He does like
He's
a
like, yes, I am a fisherman.
He does like a comical gulp and rubs it and like pulls at his collar.
There's even the bit where, when he gets knocked off the boat later on, and it has a kind of like a like a off the boat kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like a whoa!
Like Don Knotts.
There's literally...
he's like teetering on the edge. Whoa!
Yeah, it's not overacting. It literally is... To me, it almost feels a little bit like he just wasn't that into it. Like he just wasn't that bothered.
I just want this whole film reshot with Don Knotts.
Or just the sound effects of Don Knotts over Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character.
Yeah, whoa.
Revoice it with that,
oh my God.
It's nothing against good old Freddie Prinze Jr. I just think that he's miscast in this role, to be honest.
Yeah.
Or, I will put it out there, or weirdly, him and Ryan Philippe are miscast, and they would have made more sense in the opposite roles. He would have made more sense, I think, as a jockish, and I think he could have pulled off a little bit of an asshole, actually.
Maybe, yeah.
Whereas I think Ryan Philippe actually could have better pulled off the whole, he's kind of mysterious. I believe him as a fisherman, actually. If you put him down a little bit, you know what I mean? You can keep the vest.
You've got to have the vest.
Yeah, there was something about, I don't know why, Freddie Prinze Jr. being the non-rich guy, and Ryan Philippe being the rich kid. Actually, I can see Ryan Philippe as rich. He did a lot of roles where he's a rich kid, but weirdly, if I look at them both, I don't know why, but Ryan Philippe seems more like I could believe him as poor. Whereas Freddie Prinze Jr., I just look at him and go, you ain't poor.
You ain't poor.
You ain't no poor.
No, yeah, nobody
you
with
ain't my poor.
Yeah, nobody with that good skin.
You ain't eat no cold beans out of tin.
You ain't look
I'm not talking Heinz beans, I'm talking like a smart price.
Yeah, you didn't have smart price beans. You didn't have toast sandwich, you know.
You didn't have that bread sandwich.
Bread sandwich, you know.
Whatever you got, butter sandwich.
Struggle meal. But yeah.
You ain't struggled like us.
I mean, I think that another thing that I forgot watching this is that, and we touched on it slightly earlier, is it is more in a thriller vein. So we don't get our first kill until 37 minutes into it. Yeah, that's Johnny Galecki.
I mean, there is quite a long bit. The start bit was actually slightly longer than I thought it was good. Like the build up for
but even so, the build up of the year before, and then the part where they come back to town. And then they're doing stuff, and then the first note of, and it's
because they kind of got reintroduced before they kill him off. They're going to give him a little bit of a moment of I'm here kind of thing.
I'm here.
He gets beaten up by Ryan Philippe. Is they start the investigation straight away kind of thing. Yeah, I think I kind of this is a part I actually kind of like. So it's kind of, it has a lot of teases and a lot of little moments. It has, as we start to get to see the killer appearing in different places kind of thing. But obviously, it mainly starts with, we have the setup for his death with the Ryan Felipe when he comes in and he thinks that he's the one sending the notes because they just assume because he was the only one that appeared at the scene. So they assume that Max was the one who is doing all of this. So he just beats the shit out of him, even though at the time he looks like he's about to Johnny. There was part of me that kind of looked at it and actually thought that Johnny Galecki looked like he was about to just I kind of find it would have been funny if it just actually you look like you might be able to take you could actually take it.
He just throws a bucket.
Just beats the shit because you're the one that's literally pulling stuff around and he's the little fucking
he just throws like a bucket of crabs at him.
Yeah.
Like Pokemon.
And then you obviously have the setup with the hook.
Yeah.
Which I don't remember why, but I don't remember it being obviously I remember Hook.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I thought his death was an ice pick that was at the side put to the ice. I thought it was a different.
No, I always remember the hook because they mentioned the hook earlier, and they have the talk about American folklore, and I think I really like that talk that they have. It's quite creepy.
A little bit urban legend.
Yeah, a bit urban legendsy.
Little old knocking on the door, or that kind of, and you get some of those little teasers in the film as well.
Yeah,
yeah,
and then we get it's a good kill. I think it's
a
good opening.
It's a good setup. It's actually probably one of the better ones in the film, to be honest. Because some of them are this one at least feels like it's very much there. You're seeing it happen. Some of the other ones feel a little bit too cutaway, a little bit too that kind of classic. Which was disappointing at times because I thought they could have gone a bit harder with some of that.
But I think it's a 15. I think because it leans on that.
It might be, but it's just as much of Scream, and Scream shows so much more.
But Scream feels like it shows more.
Yeah, but it shows split, sliced throat getting sliced up and someone getting knifed into them multiple times. But what I mean is you're actually seeing not just from the back and then splat.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing I more don't like. I like when it actually shows at least the insert.
You like the seeing the penetration.
We need the penetration.
We need penetration.
Yeah, that's it. You don't got to see that penetration.
Yeah.
Which was why the opening on the beach was so disappointing.
Well, you were expecting a sex.
I was waiting for that with that Jennifer Love Hewitt sex scene.
You were ready to beat off.
Yeah, but the so that was kind of disappointing. But I do like it. The whole setup, that he's working in there, and you've got the steam from the crab. The steaming buckets kind of thing, and he's looking around and he hears things and he kind of moves away. It's a nice slow kind of build up, and then the sudden kind of he sees him rush towards him and straight under his not his throat but just above under his mouth, under his jaw, hook up through his jaw into his mouth and yank him over.
But why does he kill Max?
I don't know.
Is it because they go to him and say fuck off, what are you doing?
I think it's purely because he's related. I think it might be purely maybe because he was there on the night maybe. Kind of thing. I think that's the main reason that he actually gets killed off. I think it's just part of the circle,
but he's not.
He can use him kind of thing.
Maybe
I mean, he can use him as part of the
maybe
because there's a little bit of time when it's that's the other thing at times. It's they start killing off, but at one point it seems more like it's about setting them up. You know what I mean? Setting them up than it is necessarily about offing everyone. It's more about revealing the secret. And in some ways, there's a thriller in there that could be slightly more in depth. Where you've got here, where it is more about someone is step by step murdering people around them instead of actually killing them to set them up for murders. There's a bit more of that kind of. I feel like at the start of this film, it kind of feels like that's what it's doing. So that's kind of where it is, and then that bit kind of seems to teeter away, and then at the end it just goes straight into standard slasher. Yeah, it's in the last 30 minutes of the film it goes, no, we just need to go standard. We just need to start offing these people now. And it feels like you could have set this up more to be people are getting killed around them because they're trying to set them up for the death that they should have been done for. Yeah, that kind of thing, and obviously it doesn't go that way with the story, but. I think there maybe could have been a slightly more interesting twist on that kind of
potentially,
more deaths in different ways with people around them, mum, sister, in different ways, kind of thing. Because you get those scenes that follow this, when he goes into Helen's house, and you've got the fact that he was in, you see him in the doorway,
which is a really good kind of scene,
I
forgot about that.
Yeah, her going in, like her dad's there on the sofa, and I was just like, I don't remember anything about like a parent being killed early on, so dad was like dead, and I was like, I do remember sister dying, but I couldn't remember how sister dies.
I don't remember sister dying.
Yeah, I did remember her because I remembered her being such a bitch. So
yeah, I remember her being a bitch.
Yeah, so like she was always kind of jealous of the attention that she got, didn't she, for Helen, kind of thing. I remembered her being a bitch, so I did remember her dying, but I couldn't remember when she died. So I was like, but I was like, it feels like this would break the flow to kill someone right now. But that's what I said. I do kind of like the fact that he appears and he goes into houses, but not to kill them, just to fuck with them. Like hiding in the cupboard, fucking like cutting her hair off, Helen's hair off, so she wakes up in the morning with soon on the mirror. Yeah, you know, and
they and then like Max's body in the boot. You know?
Yeah, that's what I mean. And then you've got obviously like the. Not baby dick.
Yeah, not baby dick. I love that scene. I was fucking
just got
creasing.
Pictures of like
the car.
The car and the
baby dick.
Not
fucking baby dick. That baby dick is so funny.
And then and you've got him obviously like actually, but he taking almost fucking with Barry.
Yeah.
And not injuring him, hurting him.
He just fucks. He just pumps up behind him.
Yeah, which is a cool scene. You know, they're chasing down the street with the car. You know,
I forgot about that completely.
I do the thing. I didn't remember half of these bits. I feel like I remembered the beginning and I remembered the end, but I didn't remember the stuff that happened around. I remembered Helen's death and I remembered Barry's death because they are quite standout ones, I think, in the film.
Yeah, those are the ones I remember. But then those are the ones I remember because of the parody.
Yeah, they are in there extra because of the parody.
I didn't remember the high seas, spectacular ending. I vaguely remembered the twist. The absolute fucking dog water twist. The twist that makes no fucking sense. Like...
We will come to this.
We'll come to the twist.
But yeah, so we get a lot... This is the thing. There is a thing in the middle where, it's not death heavy. It is very much thriller zone of... Them going, they go to meet Anne Heche's character, her and Helen to find out about who is where we get the whole
Missy, he was
Blue. What's his name? Bill Blue.
Bill Blue. Well, then she's like, David Egan was my brother. He committed suicide. His girlfriend died like a year before on the same night in a car crash or something like that. I live on my own in this Hills Have Eyes house in the woods. Yeah. Like, do you want to stay? That jump scare when she comes back to the car did really get me.
Yeah. It's a good one. There is, I mean, I do think that this film has a good, because the director Jim Gillespie.
Yeah, Mr. Jim Gillespie.
Who is not, who I recognise the name of, and then when I looked back at his thing, realised that he really didn't do a lot at all.
I'm sure we discussed this on our Summer Slashers. Go and check that episode out.
Because he did the Detox with Sylvester Stallone, another one of those films that I've seen a million times on a thing. I've never seen it.
What is that?
I think I might have seen it.
What even happens in it?
I think it is somewhat slightly
Survival horror. Is a killer. A disgraced FBI agent with a drinking problem joins 9 other troubled law enforcement officers at an isolated detox clinic in the wilds of Wyoming. But the therapeutic sanctuary becomes a nightmarish hellhole when a major snowstorm cuts off the clinic from the outside world.
Actually, I have seen that.
And enables a killer on the inside to get busy.
I saw that film when I was younger, but yeah.
2.5. Josh gave it.
That was a rental.
Yeah, Josh gave it 2 stars.
Yeah, you go. So maybe it didn't go that way, but for making a.
He did Venom as well. I remember watching Venom, another 2.4. That was kind of an interesting one. It was on Netflix for ages.
A much cheaper kind of made. But to go from making what was a somewhat of a kind of a hit, well, it was a hit. If it had a budget of 17 million and it made 125 million in America, that's a slasher hit.
Yeah, that's a hit,
a big hit for a slasher, in fact, at that time. So that was a big hit. So to go from making this to then making a Sylvester Stallone and then basically not making any other big is a weird one, to get that. So there must have been something he did to someone. He must have fucked someone up. Yeah. He must have he must have banged Sylvester Stallone's wife or something. Yeah. He must have been knocked out of that town.
Who would his wife have been at the time?
Because...
Not Bridget Nielsen.
No. I don't think it would have been at that time, no. But the whole setup the whole look and the film and the pacing and the suspensefulness, I think is quite good. Is good.
Yeah.
But I think it looks good. The film, I think it has a nice look to it. That kind of hometowny kind of feel, kind of thing you've got. And I think, as I said, like some of them, like those opening shots and stuff. There's some really nice. It feels very. It feels very Wes Craven Scream.
Yeah,
this film does feel very much like a prototype taking from that. This is. The old copycat kind of like, not the same film, but
you can tell it's
we
written.
made this film, we want you to make another film, but make sure it looks like that film.
Yeah, make sure it feels like it,
Make sure it feels like a Scream film, so we want that kind of thing, like the push of the mystery and stuff like that, that you have to have, and then try and take it in a different direction kind of thing by it not being, not being one of them that's the killer kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got the whole middle of the film, which is somewhat kind of the thriller build-up of, and a little bit more time, to be fair, for like, say, characters like Helen and that to kind of actually get to build back, where she's not in it for a little bit, but then really gets to part as they go to the house and they get to, and then they do the parade, which I think is quite a cool part.
Yeah, it's a really cool part because there's like obviously I can't remember where Julie and Ray are during this, but Helen is on the parade because she has to do it because she was the Miss
Queen.
Beauty, whatever it was the year before.
Yeah.
And Ray and Barry is being some like guard or something, and I think Ray's actually there as well because there's a bit where there's like an old man, there's an old fisherman, and they see them and they're like, oh, it's him, go and get him, and then I think Ray or Barry runs after them, and then they jump on it, and it's clearly like an 85-year-old man, and then as Barry's lying on top, the old man just makes this weird face like he's nutting. Like he's about to bust. And there's a great scene where they're planning this. So they're like, well, we can't go to the authorities, like, this guy's coming for us, let's lay a trap and let's get him. And they're all like, yeah, let's do it. And then fucking Barry goes, well, if he shows up, I'll pound his ass. And I kept thinking, that's Scary Movie.
That's where it came from.
It just came exactly in there, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that
it has some good. I like the layup of that. The kind of the watching and the she's seeing it everywhere. Like Julie. Not Julie, Helen is literally seeing, like, everywhere she's looking, she sees him. Whether she's actually seeing him, whether everyone just happens to have that coat and hat.
I mean, it's the fisherman.
It's the fisherman, or whether it's more that she just keeps thinking she's seeing things, but you just keep seeing guys around and hooks around and just keep seeing them popping around and stuff. And I think Ray is there again to be like, he's there.
He's
there. He's there, then he's gone, kind of thing. So is he part of this because he's around? And and you'll wonder if anything's going to happen and things like that. And obviously it's daytime, so at that point, slashers daytime, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
right,
of course.
But at the same time, I did wonder whether we're going to do like a Scream 2 kind of Randy, like in the daylight,
somebody's killed in the hustle.
When they don't, in the middle of the hustle and bustle of everything, one of them, which I thought also could have been quite cool, to kill off one of them in the middle of all of that was going down. But we move on, but then obviously because we've then got the whole the beauty pageant, which follows this.
Well, we find out that David gets a death threat because I think Julie goes to see the sister whilst the parade's happening.
Yeah, she does. She goes back to her again,
and that's when she's like, "Oh, I know he committed suicide."
She's like chopping turkeys.
She's chopping turkeys, choking chickens,
like bloody knife and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so, she is also a red herring. She is a murderous woman.
Maybe it's his sister. And then she's like, "I know, like I'm gonna get." He committed suicide. I had to hide the letter or the note because of the insurance, and then when she reads it, it's saying something like, "I'll never let you forget," or it's not "I know what you did last summer," but it's something that's that, and then she's like, "Oh, it's the same writing."
Like the suicide note.
It's, and it's a death threat, and I think that is a good twist. But I think the more I think about the actual twist and who the killer is and what actually happened, the more I think it's so bad, but we'll get to it, Because you get Barry's death then, which is good, you know.
Yeah, I think that this one is. I mean, to be fair to the one, I think Scary Movie obviously to go to them skewered ones, but I think it took them because they were like strong standout moments that you could then skew it. You had a lot of ones to do, and obviously they chose the slashers, and they were huge at the time when they did that. But I think that this scene is, really effective with having Helen on the stage, everything's happening, and Barry's still meant to be kind of guarding and watching her, so he's the one watching for if she's doing anything. Yeah. I mean, letting him be on an empty balcony by himself is probably not the best way of doing that. Of course. But as she starts to like notice, and again, you get mixed up because obviously in Scary Movie, it's like like everyone thinks she's doing like a dramatic piece,
and I thought that she was doing it this time as well,
But but obviously there are different. You've got the kind of corny played up, whereas Sarah Michelle Gellar is giving a hell of a performance, actually like selling the shit out of it, just ruined by someone else.
And I think she is real good,
Oh yeah, she's really good.
Not just in this, but
out of everyone in this cast, I do still believe that Sarah Michelle Gellar should have been the one that was bigger than she actually ended up being in the end.
Yeah.
I feel like in films she should have done better than she was. And I feel like she should have been more leading lady in films than she actually ever was. She was always kind of side.
Yeah.
Which was weird, to always be that kind of side. Because obviously she also did Scream 2 around the same time as this one.
Yeah.
And she was a bit part,
Which is
weird.
strange.
But then the film was full of bit parts, I guess, of different actors. You had... Jada Pinkett Smith was in that one.
Yeah. Don Knotts.
Don Knotts was in that one.
He was in that.
Omar Epps. Another proper actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, you had lots of kind of ones. Joshua Jackson was one of them. Just one of them chatting in the thing. They were all from like teen, like of the time.
Yeah.
All these kind of actors. But yeah, it's really effective. Her like screaming as he appears behind her. And it's got a real sense of dread to it. And as he starts getting like fighting with him, you're like. Which I think adds as well, because he's been talking about how he'll pound that ass all the time.
He's talking about pounding ass.
He's talking about how he could kick their ass if they come near or do anything to us again. And now here he is trying to fight, and he's getting absolutely fucked.
Yeah, he's getting battered.
Which I guess when you think of who actually ends up being, you're a bit like questionable as to whether that dude would pro. But I guess fisherman for life.
Fisherman for life.
You got to have some good old muscle on you.
Yeah, you're used to wrestling sharks.
You deal with those big old fish.
Yeah, seafaring men.
You're used to wiggling things about in your hands.
Yeah, you used to spend a lot of time with seamen. Kind of. Yeah, big hardy men.
Yes. We're out of punts, poop deck.
Out of poop deck. First mate, masturbate. Yeah. He's a masturbator. That you get as many as you can.
He just starts slicing his way into it. He's getting it one by one, and you've got the whole shadow where you just see it through the shadow of it coming down, and you do start to see how big that shadow is, and you start to do question why people aren't seeing this giant shadow.
Well, it's strange because it's behind them,
Yeah, and it's everyone's looking because of her performance. Yeah, like, oh my god, it's amazing. So she does somewhat distracts her. Not that anyone's going to get there on time anyway. Even if everyone in that balcony turned around and fucking fit, he's already been like gutted several times.
Yeah. Barry's fucked. Man.
Yeah, Barry's fucked. And nobody gives a fuck either, to be honest.
He's a prick.
Yeah, he's an absolute bad.
Yeah, let him die.
Yeah, we're not really bothered. Helen can do better than him anyway.
And that's the thing, like we get the first kill at 37 minutes in, rip Johnny Galecki, and then we probably get like
past the hour mark.
We probably get like another half an hour. The film does, for me, kind of dip a little bit. I feel like another kill half between these would have been good, because after this death, we then get Helen gets taken away.
I do feel like the one setup. This is why I kept on expecting the sister to die earlier.
Yeah,
because I thought she seemed like she was set up to thing, which is somewhat disappointing what we end up getting, because then it's like, I thought you were going to go. I thought she was going to be more in the middle kind of one, to give a death in between. Yeah, give a little build up more kind of thing. But instead, in the middle, it's kind of more about the thriller, kind of the investigation, and a little bit more like tension, I guess, at times.
Yeah, and then and then you get Helen gets taken away by the police officer. Police officer's like mocking her a little bit. And then he pulls up, like he has to cut through an alley, and there's a car there that somebody's fixing. Somebody in a fishing hat and overalls is fixing, and then the cop dies, which is quite a good death. And then Helen's chase is really good, man.
Oh, yeah.
You know, a lot of people
this is
talk
why
about
we've mentioned it a few times on the podcast.
And a lot of times people are like, she gets so close to escaping. But I don't think it's just that. I think it's that it is like, it's Final Girl level of being chased almost. She has she has like a scrap in the car where she's fighting to get out and he's coming closer. And then there's the run through the kind of town and through the park. And then she gets to the shop, her sister lets her in. Sister gets fucking offed. Yeah. And then we get, a chase in the shop. We get the great scene where, because it's like a closed shop, you have the mannequins with the sheets under them. Yeah. And then, the fisherman's under one and he kind of bursts out at her. Then you get like another really good one with the, with the elevator. Yeah. And you're like, okay, like, she either has to die at the elevator or she has to get out. Yeah. Like it feels like this has gone on. It's long.
It's long, and I think, but actually, I kind of give kudos to the fact they managed to keep it going.
Oh yeah,
and they just show how strong Helen is for each one that she survived. You're right. It absolutely feels like she is at Final Girl kind of level. These are like the things obviously like in Scream that Sydney's getting through and getting out of, kind of thing, and still makes it through. So I think that's why that she goes through so much shit. She gets so far through it, and like as I said before about her sisters, the reason I found that one somewhat disappointing because it's so quick. It's just like scream and then a splat
gut against the window.
Yeah. I wish there was a bit more to that one. To be honest, I wish there was something added to it. Because the whole idea of the hook, you've got so many cool ones that you can do.
Yeah, kind of thing. There's people just mainly get hooked.
Yeah, that's why we mainly just get that kind of one, and that. But even then, like visually seeing some of those, like there's that kill in the sequel where the dude gets literally the hook comes down from like a vent and pulls him up, and it goes through like his throat, and literally he's getting like dragged up, his blood squirting out of his.
Can't remember the sequel.
Yeah,
I just remember Jack.
I don't remember the rest of it. I remember that bit though. I feel like the sequel's actually gorier than this one.
Maybe,
but that death is because it literally like a hook through his neck, and he gets like dragged up into the air as it's like getting taken up into the vent as it's like crap. I was like, that's fucking awesome. Whereas here, it's just like this. It felt like the sisters build up. It always feels like this when you've got a character who's a bit of a bitch or a dick or things like that. You feel like you want a bit more. Barry gets, an all right now. Yeah. Whereas this one, it feels like she could have been better used as a death in a better place in the film. Like I said, I think. Yeah. Just offing her that quick. It just feels like it has no impact, and she doesn't really get much. Helen doesn't get much impact from it, even if it was the fact that her and her sister start to escape and then she gets like gutted, therefore making you think, oh right, it's okay. Helen's going to get away from this because her sister's dead. Her sister's dead. So, but that's given her enough time to get away, and then shit, that would have been cool. But no, I guess as I said, like this is when we start getting like the main deaths are all happening together, aren't they? You go from like Barry to this to the police officer as well. But it's all that build-up as she is literally moments away from escaping. Which I think is just because it goes on for so long, it teases the audience to think, actually, she's done it. Kind of thing.
You see the parade like walking by right at the end of the alley.
And there's nothing like graphic about her death. It is basically just like a stab into her, isn't it?
It's the fact, I think what's so gutting is the fact that she's so close and she's done so many kind of like smart things that she gets there, and it's just that because she looks back and stops, that she gets there. And there's also something else that I noticed, and it was only this time I noticed, but like literally as Helen's dying, Julie comes round.
Oh yeah, what? From you see her from the crowd, Yeah,
and it's that thing of like if Helen hadn't have looked back, she'd have got there. If Julie had been like 20 seconds quicker, she would have got there and saved them.
That's what I mean. And it's sad because, as I said, like out of all of them, Helen and Julie get the best like built-up relationship in the film.
And they get very, they have that. You mentioned they have that scene where they're like, what happened to us? We used to be like so close. And those two are I know obviously like Ray and Julie do, but I think because of Freddie Prinze Jr. is just how he is. I think
also not really being in that many scenes.
Not yet.
He is put to the background to be suspect.
A little bit, yeah. Like you get the impression that the two girls are the ones who are like healing and reconciling, and you just think like, oh mate, so close. And Julie doesn't even know that Helen died like 5 meters away until, you know, right at the end when she finds her body. You know. And it's kind of like a
she doesn't know what's happened.
Yeah, it's kind of so upsetting.
And this third act from the death zone, to be fair, it does after this, like, although the middle is somewhat slow, it does speed up quite a bit because it literally goes from deaths to deaths to deaths to like finding Freddie Prinze, you know, and then it literally leading to the boat kind of area. You know, that whole like chasing and you might be the one to, you know, Ray, you may be the one, and you know, is it you? And her suddenly being like, oh my god, like this, and I've got to get away from you. And classic boyfriend is the killer kind of.
And then bump into this random stranger and go onto his boat. You know,
and we'll now go out to sea.
And now we're out to sea. You'll be fine, mate. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know? And I
mean, in no situation, whether you're being chased by a killer or a thing, there's no situation where you go, random dude,
gruff,
get on this boat,
rugged fisherman. Yes, I'll get on your decrepit boat.
I mean, either way. I mean, if she's not getting sliced up by a serial killer, she's getting some trauma.
She's getting trauma
of some kind.
The implication, you know, that boat's sailing out there. You know,
you know, and there are certain people. You know, there's no way Jennifer Love Hewitt steps onto a boat with one dude and they sail out to sea and it ain't going the wrong way.
It's the implication.
Implication.
And this is where I think the twist is fucking awful. So we find out that she's basically discovered that David Egan was like already fucking dead. You know, we discover that
he'd killed her.
Killed her
to avenge his daughter.
So David Egan accidentally kills, you know, his girlfriend, like Susie, and then a year later he goes to the, you know, where the crash happened, and he's like, I think he's going to kill himself maybe, and then Susie's dad, Ben Donaldson or Ben Williamson or whatever it is, Ben Willis, turns up, kills him, and then dumps his body in the river. And then when they run over Ben Willis and they throw him away, Ben Willis obviously escapes. They find David Egan's body. They're like, oh, David Egan got killed. But then here's my thing, right? So David Egan is dead. David Egan was killed by Ben Willis, right? Yeah. And then the guys ran over Ben Willis and thought they had killed David Egan.
Yeah.
So why is Ben Willis killing them? He got away with murder. He basically.
I mean, he did, but we've already realised that he's quite
he's
a vengeful kind of dude. So
yeah, but
I think he's because they tried to kill him and left him for dead.
But wouldn't you be like, I've got away with this. I've literally got away scot-free with murder.
I mean, yeah, but you'd also be like, you fucking killed. You basically could have killed. Like, I should be dead, and you guys just think you're getting away with it.
Yeah. Let them think they're getting away with it. You know?
I think you're thinking in a
I'm thinking rationally.
You're thinking in a rational. I got a second chance, kind of. I got away with.
I got away with
murder.
To
kill someone. I got away with it. But I think if we're talking about the dude that just killed his partner because he thinks, you know, he just killed David Egan.
I'm not a blood crazed fisher.
Yeah, I was going to say this dude is now thinking. Actually, you know,
I like killing.
Yeah, and I kind of think you'd be pretty pissed. Even you'd be pretty pissed.
I'd be pissed off.
If someone ran you over and then dumped you into the river, like, to die, and then you're like, okay, I'm probably going to do something about this now. I mean, you would probably just get out of the ocean and, you know,
I'd leave town.
Get out of the nearby and go and tell the police and be like, yeah, they did this.
No, I just wouldn't do anything. I'd just be like, mate, I got away with murder. I'm not touching this. Like, let them think they killed me. Yeah. You know, let them think they killed David Egan, because then if they're like, I killed David Egan, you know, and then they get the problem for it, and I'll be somewhere else, just living a scot-free life, you know. My daughter's dead, you know, and she ain't coming back.
I mean, but, I think I can understand why that he's a killer.
I mean, yeah.
I think I understand, and he already is established as being a killer as well, so I feel like he's just a killer.
But that was more like that kind of made sense. Like, he thinks he killed the daughter, you know, whereas. Like, you just killed somebody and you're walking in dark clothes on a road and late at night. Like, what do you think's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Like, there's a chance, man, and you took it and it fucking backfired on you. Just accept that you got hit by a car and dumped in the river and cut your losses.
As a rational man.
As a blood-crazed fisherman who was hit by a car and...
I mean, I think with the whole setup in the middle and stuff like that, and the fact they think it's David Egan... I
guess it's not a film.
It's a twist on a twist kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not a film if...
It's
my version happens.
Yeah.
You know, my version of the film happens.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you were a rational man, many films would never even begin. Never mind.
That is true, yeah.
You know, take any film and there's always the rational argument that someone comes in, like, you know, like...
Jaws, close the beach.
Yeah, close the beach, literally. If someone just enforced it, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah. Or Lord of the Rings. They always say about the fucking... So Gandalf, you had access to this giant flying bird that could have thrown it.
That's obvious. Because they'll see the birds coming.
Well,
and then they'll kill the birds and have the ring. And I think, to be precisely nerdy, I think they can't get involved for some reason. I don't know. There's something there. Somebody once told me.
See, now this is you taking the deeper bird knowledge, but just if you're taking just purely as a rational, at least get me close.
Yeah.
At least stop me having to walk literally for years.
Years, yeah.
Then in which case, even if they take it halfway, that was still a logical choice.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? There's still
they take it halfway, yeah.
Boromir didn't have to die.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, the Fellowship didn't have to join. You know, there's all these things that are like, we could have at least cut half in Joker.
Give us a lift, mate.
Gandalf, you fucking prick.
You could have all gone together.
You can turn a butterfly into that fucking thing.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck you're talking about, you know. He can manipulate it that way. It's like, you couldn't have done that. No.
Got us halfway.
It's like, no. This is a journey that has to be walked. It's like, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
But yes.
But no, I always feel that like the reveal is kind of slightly underwhelming because I don't know. I have this thing right where in these slasher films, if you're looking at stuff like, you know, like House on Sorority Row or The Initiation or anything like that, where it's kind of like something happened and then a year later or X amount of time later, people are dying around of it. I kind of want one of those characters to be. I've already been in the film. Like, you know, what we did Thanksgiving recently.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could sometimes you know who the killer is, but when it's like an old man that you haven't seen throughout the whole film, it just feels underwhelming.
That is the thing, and I think there is a little part of that I can imagine where Kevin Williamson as a writer thought, I can't just, otherwise this is just basically just a complete spin-off of Scream.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is basically just Scream with a boat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's getting too close to just making another one where it's like one of the friends is the killer kind of thing. So
yeah.
I feel like you had to go more into the urban legend kind of like the killer of the fisherman of the boatman. You know, that kind of. So it kind of more leads into what they say at the start about it being like the hooked man, the killer, the mystery man, the man they didn't know on the road, kind of more going into just a killer kind of thing instead of that. But I also get that can also be unsatisfying because you're kind of wanting it to be one of them that was the killer or someone they know kind of thing. And it's interesting in this film because, to be honest, they don't really build up enough other characters to have that mystery. Like, that's why they end up having to have Ray be the red herring because there aren't enough people around. And if you think about it, if you think about that cast that we read out, that's actually really quite small cast for a film like this where it's meant to be like, who is it? Like, there should really be a few more friends or a dad or adult that's a bit more involved in the film, so that there's a bit more of a, oh, he could be it, or, you know, or Ray's dad is a fisherman as well. He could be,
dad.
You know what I mean? Something more to build up to it, probably, but they don't actually have that many characters in this film. And even the characters that are, as we said, apart from Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jennifer Love Hewitt, the other ones are all kind of just like there, then gone for a bit, then back, and then gone for, you know what I mean? Most of them are like out of the way. So it's kind of interesting that way that there's not a huge amount of characters to play off of. So there's not many to have in your kind of red herring sandpit here to like, who could it be? And I think that's why for a lot of the film you're not really thinking like as much about like I don't know who it could be because there's no one. I've got no one to play. It's got so basically it's Ray or it's some random dude because we haven't met or you know or something like that or he's imaginary or in someone's head or something because you know and by a certain point in the film you're like well you've killed off most of the rest of them now so there's literally can only be Ray or it's gonna have to be someone else. It's gonna have to be some dude we don't know. So that's what it is. It's some dude we don't know.
some old dude.
Yeah.
Hey, you're that old dude.
Yeah.
He's trying to kill everyone.
I mean, I do like the fact that this film does feel somewhat like bigger, like in budget in some way. You know, the whole boat chase at the end. I kind of like the whole fight on the boat. Yeah. It feels different. It feels a little bit like not done. You know, in a little way. You know, you've got her like having to like escape and like climb through different hatches, and I like when she ends up in the ice pit.
Yeah, that's.
You've got Helen's body, and you've got. I think the face. I think it's Barry, but the face didn't look like Barry. No, but I was like, I think that's meant to be Barry, but it doesn't look like Barry.
But then Helen doesn't particularly look like.
No, I was going to say the bodies there are not that well done. I don't think.
They look a bit swollen.
The only thing that made me know it was Helen was the fact that she had the dress on that she was wearing. But apart from that, when she slides down, it doesn't look like Sarah Michelle Gellar.
No.
And also, I also kept just sitting there going, that's not ice.
Yeah,
that's I
fake
don't know why
ice.
that's fake ice. And I know obviously you're not gonna have Jennifer Love Hewitt. Right, we've got a huge fig of ice. You're gonna slide around this and for however many days it takes us to film the scene. But at the same time, I just kept looking at it and going, that's clearly little cubes of plastic.
Yeah,
like ice doesn't move like that. None of it's melting. Why is she not getting wet?
Where's the breath?
She's not really getting that wet. She's not. Yeah, she's not that cold. You know what I mean? It's like, why does he have a storage of plastic cubes in his? Why has he decided to store plastic cubes under his boat?
Yeah,
his weird obsession of building. He has a little play pit.
Yeah, he's got a play pit.
When he gets bored at the seas, he goes into his little play play underneath. Hey!
I'll get those kids, and then he just crawls in there and plays.
Yeah,
it's kind of decent, you know.
You know, I mean, I think it's okay. It doesn't totally work the twist, the deaths. I think even though we've said about Freddie Prinze Jr., I think somewhat though the cast and the somewhat thriller aspect of it kind of raises the film up away from just being a standard slasher. Which, as I said, I think as far as I remember, and I don't remember it being that good, but I do remember it pretty much being it's okay for a standard slasher is the sequel, which is basically just slasher. But I don't fully remember it that well. But that's just in my head thinking, once. This one's kind of more in the thriller kind of territory. I did wonder if we'll watch it back and go, you know what, actually we had more fun with the sequel because it's basically just people getting killed on an island. You know, it's a bit more on a Hawaiian island with, you know, racist Jack Black. Generally racist Jack Black, just in that film is this weird white Jamaican dude.
That's all I remember is Jack Black is a white Jamaican.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't.
Such a weird one.
Yeah, I don't remember anything else about it.
Then all we get is that random scene at the end of the year later, which is like the old tease of, you know, oh my god, he's come back to get you kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know,
but he gets
the showers.
He gets he gets fucking like comic book yoinked up into the air on like a hoist. His arm gets cut.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I do like the whole that his like hand gets cut and the hook stays.
I like that. Yeah, that's cool. And then he just gets fucking
and he's gone,
flung into the water.
And you're like, well, that didn't work last time, so dude ain't dead, right?
Yeah. Like if anything, this guy. I mean, apart from the severed hand, maybe he's kind of in a better situation. He hasn't just been battered by a car. Yeah. You know, like,
he's actually probably better than he was last time.
Yeah, I kind of trust this more. You know.
So they still don't find him. So that's left open for your sequel. Except we have a little tease at the end, which somewhat to me just felt like them finally going right. She's got past all her trauma, but mainly. This is the scene in there that we probably put in the trailers to show that Jennifer Love Hewitt will somewhat show her boobs. It's like not show her boobs properly, but you're going to actually finally get some like boobage of Jennifer Love Hewitt because
I don't
pretty
believe you
much
see
the
that until
boobs are, like,
Heartbreaker.
you're seeing the cleavage at the top
Yeah.
of her a lot in this scene, quite a lot in this scene of her like trying to jiggle around with her towel, trying to hold her face while that's kind of happening. And I pretty much just felt like, is this just funny? You sat through the whole film, now you get some cleavage.
Yeah, you were just on the go, weren't you? You were just ready.
Yeah,
you were just ready.
I mean, this is a kind of this is a kind of thing that these films end with, but and certain slashers end with this kind of jump at the end, the scare. Kind of thing, I still know.
I like
shower,
that. I like.
quite
I
effective.
still know what you did last.
And then you get that kind of as if you burst through the glass in the
Yeah.
middle of all of that kind of thing, and that's the end. So you're like, did she survive? Did she die? Is he back? Is he not? What happens there? I don't know if that's explained in the sequel. I can't remember. But she's still alive in the sequel, so I don't know. And that's I know what you did last summer.
I mean, I don't. I think it's unfair to say that I dislike the film because I don't. I think it's a decent film. I think maybe it's a bit overrated. I think going into it, I was more like, I'm excited to watch this. I remember it being kind of like a bit more in line with something like Scream, where there was a bit more of like a bit more of a gruesome and a bit more of kind of like a body count scattered throughout.
Yeah.
But it's definitely leans on a lot more of the thriller side, and I would probably say for the first maybe hour 10 minutes maybe, we get one death,
Yeah.
and I really don't. I mean, I don't like the twist. We've just established that. But it's kind of one of those films where I'm glad we covered it because I liked looking at it after not watching it for so many years.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's very much it's definitely inferior to Scream, but I can see why as a franchise it kind of struggled, which is a shame because I think the actual the premises of it is pretty good. The idea behind this event happening and it basically being a modern day version of those slashers we spoke about when we talk about kind of 80s slashers. I find it's really interesting. We get the very much the icons. We get the Freddys, we get the Jasons, we get the Michael Myers, where you're watching the film for them, and then you get the kind of the one and dones. Prom Night, House on Sorority Row, Initiation, My Bloody Valentine, where it's more of who did it, who's behind it. And I feel like they leaned for me a little bit too much into that thriller, slightly slower paced. Whereas I seem to remember it being a bit more of a balls to the wall slasher at times. I almost feel like you have the start and then you have the end.
The start and the end. The middle is very much thriller.
Yeah.
The middle is an investigation, kind of finding out what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah, and it kind of drags it down for me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't really mind that part. I think it makes it kind of somewhat stand out from some of the other ones, where it is just slashes. As I said, I'm not overly, the characters and the characters outside of Julie and Helen are not greatly well established.
No.
I think are very one note, and sadly not all the performances stick that well. But at the same time, I don't know. I think there's something in this. There's a 90s charm to it. I think it's still got. I do think the last half an hour or so is pretty. Moves at a pretty good pace.
Yeah.
And you've just got to kind of build up. From there. But it does depend how much the mystery holds your attention, and that's the only hard bit on rewatch. If you know where it's going. There's not a lot there because so much of it is about the mystery. It's not the easiest one probably to rewatch if you haven't seen it in a very long time. I think you could lose interest if you know where this is all going.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not got, because the deaths are not so quick and fast and thing. It's not got the rewatch value of the Scream franchise.
Yeah,
in terms of that, Scream ones you could watch again and again because the deaths come quick and fast throughout, and it's got fun and it's kind of somewhat humorous. Whereas this one's a little bit kind of
it's a bit too serious.
Yeah,
at times,
it is a bit too serious. And it does somewhat drag it down a little bit. That it hasn't got a little bit, which is too bad because that's kind of what made Kevin Williamson's writing great in Scream is the fact it has this kind of wink kind of kind of dark but humorous kind of thing that it can play with deaths and kind of somewhat make them both gruesome, but also somewhat a little bit humorous at times.
Yeah.
Without losing the seriousness completely that you're like, oh, this just becomes silly now.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe like Scream 3, but you didn't write that one.
No.
But that's what I mean. And this one does take it a little bit too seriously at time, because I think it is very much sticking to the mold of a thriller-based story.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it sticks more serious. But yeah, that's kind of why it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I do still enjoy it, but it's not quite like a perfect slasher.
Yeah.
It's not quite got the level of depth and character, and the twist just sadly doesn't like completely pay off. Because you're not invested in the character. So, like, that's kind of the problem. You're just not interested in the character.
I mean, going over to the social media lounge. So we put the film that we're talking about on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. We only had one this time, which was Sharon at My Sharona 1987. So the first thing that they mentioned was that basically agreeing with the general consensus that Helen should have been the final girl, and that Julie is one of the kind of blander leading horror women. I know we touched on that earlier. But interestingly enough, they also mentioned that the story behind the film is interesting, with the author of the book basically disowning it and despising it. So as you mentioned, that the book is kind of a melodrama and isn't really horror at all. However, the writer was furious because apparently her daughter had been violently killed a few years before the film came out. So so she kind of found it kind of like very distasteful that they would take this story of hers and effectively make it about a teen slasher, so she's despised it. And Sharon also mentioned about, Stephen King kind of hating The Shining. This is another example of an author whose book went on to be adapted, changed quite a bit, and they actually ended up kind of disowning the end product.
Yeah.
Which I think is quite interesting.
That is interesting, yeah.
And I think I thought they would have taken maybe that if that happened to the author's kid, then they would have maybe taken that into consideration when doing it.
They probably barely even looked into.
They probably barely did, didn't they?
They probably had. It depends on if you're a really high-profile book, then you have to have a lot of permission from the author. But if you're a kind of middle of the or a smaller book kind of thing,
especially from 20 years
they can get the rights without ever even barely contacting the author. They can just go to the publishing company and go, right, we want this book, and they're like, they'll do whatever sell it, buy it, whatever you want, buy it for this, tuppence.
I buy it for a tuppence and a sixpence. But that's I Know What You Did Last Summer. That is the 90s slice of our summer slashers. Come and let us know your thoughts on I Know What You Did Last Summer, whether it's an absolute banger, whether it's a stinky little poo-poo. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. Remember to please hit that subscribe button and leave us a review, and we will see you next week where we take a trip to the early 2000s and we get a little bit of French on our plate. We will see you then. Take care. Au revoir.